Oh. Well, I guess at least he's walking around again. A little stupid, though. Hello all, and welcome to Diversity of Life Episode 7, with me, Mad Nasty. For this week's episode, we're going to delve into another horror, and one that's somewhat related to last week's episode. I'm talking about zombies. Real life, somewhat living zombies. However, these aren't the zombies of traditional cinema. These zombies don't come back to life, but are rather on death's door. These zombie animals are zombies because something turned them into such. What monstrosity does this, you ask? Well, it's a life strategy picked up by all manner of organisms. Wasps, worms, fungi, single-celled organisms, all have figured out how to make an organism tick to the tune of their own clock. Unlike parasitoidism, there is not one definite end goal or method or reason why zombifying organisms do what they do. Rather, each is unique. So for the rest of this episode, I'll share some of my favorite examples of zombification, what they do, and why they do it. First up is our callback to last week's episode, the Hymenopteran Wasp parasitoids. If you recall the video I had playing in the corner at the end of last week's episode, you'll have noticed that the caterpillar is doing something peculiar. The wasps have exited. Why is it not dead? Why is it hanging around the pupae? And why is it actually protecting those wasp pupae? Well, it's a living zombie. The wasp genus that does this is Gallipanteles, a tropical genus of wasps that all cause the same behavior in caterpillars. These wasps are parasitoids, so they exist within the host for a given amount of time, but they don't consume the host enough that it kills it right away when they exit. They do it just enough to keep it alive. And before they leave the host, they impass a little gift. The wasps release a chemical that makes the caterpillar want to protect the pupae of the emerged wasps. The caterpillar sticks around these cocoons, fending off hyperparasitoids and predators. And then, as soon as the wasps emerge as adults, the caterpillar dies. Now, what these chemicals are that the wasps are releasing, how they elicit such a complex response from the caterpillar, and how they exactly work in the brain of the caterpillar, we don't really know. But we do know that this behavior is consistent and it's been observed numerous times in the wild. Next zombifying organism I'll be talking about is a personal marvel, the horsehair worm. This is an entire phylum of worms, the Nematophora. This group is largely parasitoids and is found quite commonly worldwide. The horsehair worm that I am most familiar with is Porangorius varus, and it's the one I'll be talking about here. So, picture this, young me, about 8 years old. I was on a fishing trip with my dad. I enjoyed fishing, but I really enjoyed exploring the nearby woods a lot more. So I wandered off to find some creepy crawlies, and in doing so I found a pool of water. Curiously, in this pool of water, there was a thin, long, root-like thing sticking out of a cricket. And the thing that really kind of confused me was that it was moving in the opposite direction of the current. Naturally, I took the jar that I had with me. We all carry sampling jars wherever we go when we're 8 years old, right? And I collected it. I searched in the local museum's archive, then there it was. I had collected my first horsehair worm. That specimen is now in the New Brunswick Museum's collection. But how did it get there? These horsehair worms start out as larvae in the water, where they're eaten by mosquito larvae. When the mosquito larvae emerges as an adult, they still have the horsehair worm larvae inside of them. As the adult mosquito dies somewhere in the woods, scavengers, like the cricket, will eat them up. The larvae will then develop inside of the cricket, this time into its long adult form. And at this moment is when it turns the cricket into a zombie. The worm releases numerous neurotransmitters. These are the chemicals that are responsible for communication within the brain. These neurotransmitters tell the enslaved cricket to first stop chirping. That behavior could get the cricket eaten, and the worm doesn't want that. Second, it wants the cricket to find water. It finds the closest body of water and it jumps in, but rather than trying to stop itself from drowning, it sinks itself to the bottom. And that's where the horsehair emerges, killing the zombie cricket and starting the cycle again. Next, I will address why there was a mushroom sticking out of Nasty's head. This was the Ophiocordyceps unilateralaris fungus, also known as the ant zombifier. This fungus infects ants with spores. Once the ant is inoculated, it starts to convulse, dislodging itself from the colony. Then it sets out to try and find a highly humid and warm spot. This is the fungus's doing, turning the ant into a zombie that wants to go to a spot perfect for the fungus to grow. Once the ant finds the ideal spot, it will grab a hold of whatever its mandibles can latch onto, locking itself in place, and then it'll let the fungus grow out of its head. Many fungi manipulate host behavior, and in fact, the zombifying agent in the renowned game The Last of Us is based on zombifying fungi. The last zombifying organism I'm going to be touching on may be a surprise to you. It's called Toxoplasma gondii, a single-celled organism and parasite. It's only known to sexually reproduce in domestic cats. And what might shock you is that you might be infected with it right now. It is estimated that 30 to 50% of the population of the developed world has been exposed or is a host to this parasite. This parasite has been shown to elicit a variety of behavioral responses within the host. A study by Webster in 2007 outlined many of these. The most common non-cat vector of this parasite is mice and rats. The mice and rats were shown to be attracted to cat urine, making them more likely to be eaten and transferred to the sexual reproductive host, the cats. In maze experiments, they were also seen to be more reckless and more likely to be active inside of the maze. And actually, similar behaviors have been observed in humans. Some tested positive for this parasite have stated that cat urine was pleasant in smell. And in some research in the UK, where infection can be up to 83% of the population, drivers infected with the parasite were found to be more reckless. While there are no significant ill effects from the infection of this parasite in adult humans, there are cases when first exposed to the parasite to exhibit fever-like symptoms. And in recent literature, Toxoplasma gondii has been linked to schizophrenia, but it's only a weak connection. Thanks so much for listening to the mumblings of a mad scientist for the past 2 episodes. As always, Nasty wants to hear from you. Do you think cats are secretly plotting to utilize this organism and take over the world? Before watching this episode, did you know that there was just so many organisms that turn their hosts into living zombies? Do you think Nasty will be okay in time for Conference and MFF? Which I will be at, by the way. Let him know in the comments below. As always, if you liked what you heard in this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to hear more of my furry antics, feel free to follow me on my Twitter. Hope you all have a horrifying Halloween. And if you attend a friend's Halloween party, do mind the cats.